You ready? Alright, let's do this. High five! Hello everyone, this is Dark Symphony 777 with another fanfiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comments section below on your thoughts of the story. So the story I'm doing a review of is Celia's Dad Redux, by Starlit Duck. This is actually a remake of a previous story she did originally. I did a couple remakes of hers before of old stories, but I believe this is actually the first time on my channel I actually reviewed both the original and the redone one. Yeah, I was like, I reviewed a couple stories that were remakes of her previous stories before. And also there is Darkness Arises Redux, which was a remake. But I mainly just... But without what I mainly just talked about the redone one, I did bring up the original version, more specifically why the original version was done. Like I said, if you didn't know, the whole reason why that author redid Darkness Arises was because he even acknowledged that like he wanted to tell a story and he made a Gary Stew. It's like, no, I'm gonna do this right. I just redid the whole thing, and so that's why we got Darkness Arises Redux. But Celia's Dad Redux had a different purpose from that. And instead of wanting to do that story right, she wanted to do this story as a way to showcase how she improved her writing over time. Because I did about 22 of her stories, and if you actually paid attention from the first story to episode 1 to episode 22, you can see her writing getting better over time. Like, she improved character, she improved how everything works. It was a time-consuming thing, and this story represents her wanting to take what she learned from all that time and apply it to her very first story. And I honestly think that's a very nice thing to do. So I did have a few problems, more coming into the review rather than anything to do with the story itself, was how I was going to present it, because I technically already reviewed the original, so I didn't really know how I would broach the remake outside of it. It's just silly. It's just her first story. She just literally fixes everything. And yesterday I did record a different version. I actually uploaded it to YouTube for like a couple minutes, and I quickly realized, with some me and Star, the author, actually both realized this sucked. So I'm basically, hopefully, doing it right this time. I want to do this story justice because I like this story. I really like this story because it showcases how much improvement that she has from her first story to this story. And it's a really genuinely good story. And so let's get into the review. So the only thing that's really didn't change about the story, because for the most part, most of the things in this story, from the writing style, the sentence structure, the characters, the pacing, got a complete overhaul. The only thing that didn't really change is the plot. The plot more or less stays pretty much just exactly the same. It stars Roy Koopa. Okay, fine. Let me go over it in detail because some things about the plot did change, but on and on as a whole, the plot didn't really change. The plot is, if you sum it down to its basic ingredient, like the basic idea is Celia wants to find her dad, but let's just go into detail. So the story actually doesn't start with Roy. The story actually starts with Celia breaking into a house to commit some robbery and kind of showcasing and kind of getting some character introduction of her and showcasing that she lives in the sewer. She's she technically made herself homeless. If you read the original story, she only made herself homeless. She's not technically homeless because she didn't nothing bad didn't really happen to her parents. She just ran away because out of fear and stuff like that. And Roy broke up with a girl named Judy because Roy is an idiot, and Roy decided to clean her plates using an heirloom drapes, which honestly is hilarious, but also kind of like how do you even do that? Like how stupid do you have to be to look at curtain drapes and go, I can clean plates with this. Yeah. 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 I don't know. Ask Roy Koopa. So anyway, Roy is completely bummed out about all the stuff that happened, and so the Koopalings take him to Neo Bowser City in order to try and cheer him up, but he's still mopey, and so he kind of mopes around on a bench in the park, and then Celia meets him. They talk to him. Some shenanigans happen involving Celia actually getting arrested, and then Roy wanting to help Celia by getting Iggy to hey, you gotta help me save her. It's like, why? I like her? No. Oh, but she's Bowser's daughter. What species is she? She's human? No. No, they can't. No, she's human. She can't be Bowser's daughter. She can't be Bowser's daughter. Okay. What if she's a hybrid? Tell me more. And of course, Iggy and Roy go to save her. More shenanigans happen. Thank God the plot point about them going to the Bean Bean Kingdom and dealing with the skeletal ape is gone. I just found that gets completely out of place. I was like, I even said it in the original review. It's like, it's out of place. It's a really neat idea because you can incorporate the Kongs and stuff like that. It's like there's genuinely good stuff that you can do with that idea of a massive skeletal cake that's possibly related to the Kongs, make it its own story, and just go wild with that then. And instead, we have Celia in jail. She gets pardoned with the prank of Iggy and Roy and in the Bowser costume from Mario Party. You gotta love it. Celia basically tells Bowser, "I'm your daughter." Well, not yet. Let me. Well, yeah. I'm skipping a couple of chapters because I want to save that for the end. Bear with me. There's a reason I'm skipping certain chapters of that. So we have some shenanigans happen with the Koopalings, and Celia meets Bowser, and Celia goes, "You're my daddy," and he's like, "Okay." Yeah. You're like, "Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing it." And so, everyone, most of the Koopalings are kind of skeptical about the whole thing. It's eventually revealed that Celia is not Bowser's daughter. It's obvious. And so Celia goes to find out about her father. Father's like, I gotta know my real father. And so Roy decides to help her, gets on his bike, goes, helps her. They run into Celia's mother, Ruby, who kind of leads the way. It's like, yeah, your father's name was Singe. I was worried that you were going to... I was worried that because of all the bullying, so I told you Bowser was your father to cheer you up and make you happy. And so they go back to Iggy. Iggy says I remember Singe. I think I made him an arm. I don't know where he went. I don't know. I can't remember. And then eventually they kind of go around the Darklands. They go visit Celia's grandparents, who's like the grandfather, lead to like a very hilarious thing involving China. It's like, we must protect the China, hide the China. Why are we hiding China? The Yoshi Mafia is after it. What? Before you say anything, no, Yoshi Mafia is not involved. Or are they? You never know with the Yoshi Mafia. Oh no! Oh my god! Sometimes I just say the dumbest thing, and now I actually want to see Yoshi in a mafia outfit with like the glasses and like acting like the Godfather. It's like, you come to me, I'm the Yoshi and my Yoshi skinny. Yoshi. I can't help it. The image is just too funny to picture. I can't help it. Okay. So, back to the plot. So, the grandmother is very, very racist. And this kind of ties into my review for episode 20, which actually incorporated the whole idea that the Toads just really don't like the Koopalings, and it's more of a prejudice thing due to the parent assassination of Peach's parents by Bowser. It's actually more complicated than that. You'll get better detail in episode 20, so just either watch that review or read Super Koopalings episode 20 to kind of get more details about that. But I do think it was another suggestion that I think she incorporated into the story to kind of lay better groundwork for that specific plot point in case she wants to continue that plot point in the future, because it looks very much like that she is going to actually continue that specific plot point. It's just a matter of when she does it than if she doesn't. But yeah, the grandmother is very prejudiced towards Celia for being and more importantly Ruby for being human and marrying Singe, who's Koopa. The grandfather is actually very melancholic. He regrets a lot of things. He realizes that he can't make up for them, so he actually takes Roy and Celia to a diner, gives them some dinner, and Celia even calls him out. It's like, you're not gonna earn my forgiveness, and Singe actually acknowledges that, yeah, I don't deserve your forgiveness. This is just me wanting to do something for you. Even if it means I'm not going to earn your forgiveness because I don't deserve to earn your forgiveness. And he basically tells him, it's like, I don't know what happened to Singe. I just know I just regret doing that. I'm sorry. I hope you find him and I hope he's okay and stuff like that. And so he leaves them. Celia and Roy eventually run into the Starbite Society, which is basically a sort of underground ring of animal protectors. Outside of the whole saving Monty Moles thing, the story doesn't really go much into what the Starbite Society actually does. It's just like, we just stick to the shadows. We help these Monty Moles. It can be yours for $10.99. And of course we get a long flashback sequence with their leader of the Starbite Society, Camark, letting Roy and Celia look through his memories to find out the truth about where Singe might have went and what happened to him, and of course what happened is Camark and his brother founded the Starbite Society, they had different ideas of what they wanted to do with the organization. Camark wanted to stick to the shadows, kind of, doing this for its own reward sort of thing, kind of like a volunteering service. His brother wanted to be like an actual gang, and whose whole sole purpose was to assassinate Kamek. Not even I can't even remember if it was Bowser and Kamek or just Kamek that the brother wanted. But his brother saw the whole thing as like sort of like Robin Hood-esque, but instead of giving to the poor, it's like, give it to us sort of deal. So apparently there was a couple chapters of them just fighting of arguing, and eventually Kamark's brother went after Kamek, got arrested. Singe went after to save him, sacrificed his arm, which led to the whole, Iggy building the mechanical arm in. Singe and Kamark actually had a big argument with Kamark, and revealing that it's like, I love you that way. And Singe is like, I have a kid. And then Singe leaving the Starby Society to go live in the Forest of Illusion. They finally got a hint of where he is. So they go to the Forest of Illusion. Celia and Roy get into a little fight because of the simple fact that Roy thought Celia loved him, but Celia actually didn't really know the term like, because when they were first hanging out, they kind of told each other that they liked them, and Celia didn't really know about that like means love because, she spent 6 years in a sewer. She wouldn't know this kind of thing. Says, I didn't really know that you, hold on, I just realized something. Okay. I realized at this point, it's like, did I actually, did the microphone switch again? But I checked it and it's fine. But yeah, they kind of had, Celia runs off into the forest, falls into a ditch, hurts her head. Roy saves her. The trees are just making fun of Roy, but then let him lead a path towards a house that has the piano from Super Mario 64. Oh, excuse me. And eventually, Roy runs into Singe. Singe eventually finds out, it's like, wait a minute, this is my daughter. I can attempt to be a father. And then afterwards, Celia, after Celia wakes up, Celia goes to talk to Roy. And of course, the same thing, the ending kind of happens the same. They kind of talk about wanting to see where their friendship takes them. It's like they're okay with being friends, but it's like if something happens in the future, which actually does happen in the future with the episode of them, their kid actually helping. It's like, we gotta get you together. I'm gonna be shipping. Your partner was bad, you should feel bad. Shut up. And of course, the story ends the same way, with Celia deciding to stay with Singe to try and get to know him and stuff like that. So that is the actual plot. Okay. So, characters. Now, there is a bunch of characters that we can't talk about, but I'm mainly just going to talk about Roy and Celia. Roy is, compared to his the version of him in the original was more of a ladies' man than an idiot. He did have some dumb traits, he was kind of an idiot, but it wasn't really the forefront of his character in the original. But then again, it's been a while since I read it, so the original, so don't blame me. But in this one, he's basically a jerk who knows that he's dumb, but is he kind of hints that he knows that he's dumb, but he's still, various points when he's talking to Celia, he's like, I know I'm dumb, but it's I want to help you, I just want to make you happy, and does inspiring speeches of trying to cheer her up, and he's actually and the story actually presents him as being really good with it. I mean, he's no Winston Churchill, Churchill can do a fine speech. But he's good. But he is a good talker. And he does cheer her up. He is a very nice guy. He's still dumb as rocks. But it's done in a way where it's not really a pressing thing. It's just he's a jerk. He's dumb. But he has a heart of gold. He wants to genuinely help Celia because he wants to help her. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't see her as anything else. He just I'm going to help you for helping you. And then we move on to Celia. Oh boy. If you actually watch the review of the original Celia's dad, Celia was badly written in that story. I'm not going to lie. She was badly written. However, this story fixes everything that was wrong with her. She has a definite character. She has a definite character. She has a more pronounced character arc. She did have a character arc in the original, but it was more of a minor thing than anything else. So, yeah. But at least she had a character arc in the original. But it's more clearly defined here. She basically, at the beginning, we're introduced to her actually robbing from the whole store to kind of like scrounge around to try and keep herself alive. She comes off as more friendly and nice when she comforts Roy and gets to talk to him while, Roy is kind of going through a funk. And then, of course, she has genuine emotion. She comes off more as a character here, just like in episode 20, because I really liked episode 20 for what she did with Celia. And this is just basically episode 20 Celia in episode 1. I really like that. There's much more to Celia. Like, there's a part where, there are parts there where she actually has nightmares, and it comes off as very frightening. And it kind of sells her, like, lingering loneliness there, and afraid of confronting her mother, and afraid of confronting the truth, everything going on. She is kind of headstrong. I mean, but the headstrong thing is more pronounced in episode 20. That's something we're hinted at here, but that's more in the forefront for episode 20 than anything else. She does have some kind of stubbornness. She is kind of socially awkward from living in a sewer for like so long. Hence why some of the stuff she says with Roy is kind of like weirdly stilted from her. And that's something you can only really tell if you read for a long, long time. This is something you have to actually discover on your own, but there are times where she kind of... The way she says it and the way she presents it is kind of off, but it's something that you can really only tell if you have a real keen eye. And that's due to the fact that, in the story she's been in the sewer for like years, so she's not really used to that. She hasn't really gotten used to that again. And she comes off as a real, more believable human character, as much as like human Koopa hybrid. How does that work anyway? Human and Koopas. I mean, Bowser. I mean, don't lizards procreate asexually? Like, how does that work? How does that work? I don't know. For all I know, I could be thinking of lizard dongs. I don't know. I love Mountain Dew. But yeah, Celia is a very, very pronounced, more incredibly actually nuanced. If you actually read it multiple times, you actually get there's a lot of nuance under her character. And it's much better than the original Celia's dad. Like, she's more or less the main character. Roy is the other main character, but this is Celia's story. Like, at the end of the day, she's a really great character. Nothing wrong with her. I love her character. Let's move on. Pacing. I like the... Okay, I want to come up a little meta here, and I know Star... I'm kind of worried that Star may be upset, but her stories had like this very annoying habit of the really good ones were more stunted by the fact that they were short. Like episode 20, honestly, episode 20 is kind of the weird example because that one's actually a really good story that's actually really short. But she could have easily lengthened that like multiple chapters. It's still good with how short it is. One time. Excuse me. I actually want to do something real quick. I actually want to look up exactly how long episode 20 was. Episode 20. Yeah, it was 32,444 words. Minus author's notes. And this story... and let's actually go to the original. The original Celia's dad was 40,890. This story Celia's dad, Redux, is, where is it? Nearly 100,000 words. It's like 7,000 words short of the original. And again, this was more of a weird thing because like I said, all her really good stories, the only problem I had with them was she condensed them way too short, where it would have been better to let them breathe and have them stretched out. Like the whole part where Roy goes to the memory sphere of what Celia went through ever since they kind of left, separated. My main problem with that story was that it was just too short. There was so much right with it, and the only problem was it was just way too short for its own good. This story was perfectly paced, and that's honestly, I think, what most of these stories should be. Like, it should be somewhere between 50 to, 90,000 words. Or at least most legal ones. If the story has to be short, like a shorter story, she's doing something called, where is it? 1,000 blank white cards, where she's doing a special episode. That can be short. That can be this goofy one-off thing where it's not trying to tell a story, it's just trying to tell a bunch of goofy things. That can be short. That's fine. This story is over twice the length of the original one, and she took that huge bit of advice. If you want to do these stories right, make them as long as they need to be, because some stories are just simply better told longer. Some stories are just simply work better as short stories. Some work better at long stories. The original Celia's Dad needed to be long, not monstrously long, but long enough to tell you the characters, who Celia is, who Roy is, and most importantly, who the Koopalings are. Because the big problem I had with episode 1, the original one, was it's the first episode of what's going to be a 64 episode series. It's going to be a while before it's even done. And we didn't really know anything about the Koopalings, because fanfiction rules, you can every single writer does certain characters at least minutely different to differentiate themselves, they're trying to tell a story. But we didn't really get a handle on who all the Koopalings are. In the original, we got Roy, we got Iggy, kind of, and we got Ludwig, kind of. We only really got Roy for the most part in the original, and that was my biggest problem with the original. It's kind of rule number one in storytelling. If you're trying to tell a long story series, it'd be best to try and show at the beginning, give us a handle of who all the main characters are, and try and pace them out enough so that way us, the readers, can differentiate ourselves. Okay, here's how this character acts. Here's how this character acts. Here's just the baseline. And that you didn't have to, nothing really complicated. Just tell us who they are, what their dynamic with what as the main character entails, any traits that they have that you're going to be exploring on, whether or not it's very surface or very something of a minute thing. That's fine. And I'll talk more about the Koopalings themselves at the end. Trust me. There's a reason I skipped those couple chapters when I talked about the plot. This story, and when it comes to a paces everything beautifully. We have the introduction, introducing us to the two main characters. The first two chapters are showing us who Celia is and who Roy is, and giving us, in less than, I think, 1,500 words. I think they're under 1,500 words each. I'm not going to count the first two chapters in terms of their individual words. And the author, thanks to her actually learning the craft as she kept writing, gave us everything we want to know about Celia and Roy in those two chapters in under 1,500 words, told us who they are, what their motivations is, what their character arc's going to be, and everything we'll need to know about them throughout the story in those 2 chapters. That is frankly staggering, because if you take in mind the fact that at this point she's been writing for around nearly 4 years. She'll actually be writing about 4 years in March on Fanfiction. I don't know how long she wrote before then, but as of March of next year, she'll be officially... 3 years. My bad. She'll officially be written fanfiction for about 3 years come next March. And the fact that she was and if you look at the pacing with the original, it said you can do a lot of neat things with this. It's just really fast, and you especially needed time to let specifically the Koopalings breathe to let us get to know them. And you look at this story and you see that she fixed every single problem. Like, she cut out the unnecessary stuff with Bean Kingdom and the Skeleton Monkey. Probably gonna shelf that for another time if she wants to. Up to her. Gave us time to breathe to get us introduced to each character one after another. We have an entire part where most of the Koopalings are together, minus Morton, obviously. There's a very obvious reason why Morton's not there. Yeah, just read the story. Gave us time to give us each introduction to the Koopalings individually, and then having slowing that part down to let us breathe. But then once she goes to look for her father, she actually speeds the pacing up, so that way it's very brisk and moving quickly, but not too quickly that it's just over and done with. We're giving time to breathe to give us more detailed introductions over each new character. So it's like when we're introduced to Ruby, it's the Star slows down the story a bit just to give us time to get to know Ruby, and then it speeds back up, and then it just slows down when we meet her grandparents. And the same thing goes with the Starbite Society. The only one that kind of got speed up is Singe, mainly because Singe only really appears at the end of the story. He technically appears in the flashback chapters, but we technically don't. But in real time, we don't really meet him until the end, and we get to know him more in the flashback character where Roy's going through Celia's memories. So it even keeps the purpose of keeping Singe mostly hidden, and so that way when you go back to read the flashback story, it still keeps that same impact of us finally getting to know Singe through that moment. Through that story. But yeah, it's really good in pacing and sentence structure. She cleans up the grammar. Not the grammar. I don't know why I say grammar. She cleans up the sentence structure, keeps everything brisk. She focuses on what matters, what needs to be told. It's all nice and clean and just completely, fixed. And again, the fact that she's nearly reached 3 years is actually really, really astounding. Like, that's impressive to learn that quickly, and you can actually see her. If you actually go through the stories, you see her learning more and more as time goes by. That's why it's like when it came to reviewing each of her stories. Like I reviewed 22 of her stories. This will be 23. Well, 25 if you count the 2 special episodes. You see at the very beginning, it's very shoddy, poorly written, and completely full of like problems, stuff like that, outside of basic idea. But then, as you go through each story, you see like everything slowly being fixed. You see characters being fixed up and clean and giving us more detail and character arcs and more in depth on their characters. You go more in their mindset more. The writing is cleaning up. Everything is slow. You can see her in real time, slowly becoming a better writer. Like when you see, say, Stephen King or James Peterson, they didn't start out like savants of the reading literature. Although I'm not a big fan of Peterson myself, I think he's just kind of rote. He more or less just kind of mostly writes the same thing over and over again. And in my opinion, I think Peterson should retire, but that's just me. I think like Peterson's last good book was Zoo. Anyway, I actually kind of like Zoo, but yeah. But they started out badly. Like, when it comes to writing and being a writer, you have to start from somewhere. You have to start from the beginning, where you're very clumsy and stuff like that. But when it comes to Stephen King and Jordan Peterson, when they start publishing books, they already accrued years and years of practice and to establish their writing style, to establish what the ideas that they want to do. And it's always such a cool thing to see an author start from the bottom, like not really be good at the writing thing, at being a writer, and you slowly see her in more or less real time through these stories accrue more and more experience, and you see her slowly get better as she starts to realize her individual writing style, what she wants her writing to be, what she wants her characters to do, and how she wants them to work, changing the plot up, incorporating new ideas slowly over the course of all of these stories. And then you reach Celia's Dad, and Celia's Dad is the first story where she took everything she learned from all the other stories and incorporated it all into one great story. Celia's Dad, Redux, is a great story. It's not Better Off Alone tier. Like, Better Off Alone tier is honestly the story where, like, top, like, the top 1%, in my opinion. Even then, they're subjective. But if you look at it objectively, you can see that she took every single lesson that she herself has learned from her previous writing stories and incorporated it all into one story to showcase that she's learned all these things, that she wants to do this legitimately. She loves the Koopalings. She wants to tell the story about them. She wants to showcase how much she loves them. And this story is a great fundamental understanding on the individual growth of a writer from... It's kind of a cliche thing because it kind of doesn't fit. From rags to riches. Sort of, kind of a weird analogy, but what do you say? No grammar errors. Good. And now we finally reach the end. Would I recommend the story? I would. More than likely this is probably because this or the next review might be the last story before I actually start working on the top 10. But if there's any Starlit Duck story that's definitely going to be in that top 10, it's going to be this one. Because this story does everything right. It does nothing wrong. I wouldn't change it. I'm just going to leave that up. Change nothing. Nothing, except maybe there's one paragraph in not chapter 3. Chapter 4, where I just thought maybe it would make more sense to have Celia, it being told from Celia's point of view first, and then switch to Roy, because reading it like this is just Roy, sitting down being mopey. And then he hears Celia saying, "Hey," and then he looks up. And then it cuts to Celia wandering the park and then seeing Roy and going up to him, following a sort of brief introspection of her thoughts on whether or not to do it. I just think honestly, it would just flow better if the two things are switched. But she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to if she doesn't want to. Favorite part. You remember how I said during the plot that there's a specific part where I skipped? Here it is. My favorite part of this story is the introduction of the Koopalings. Roy basically giving Celia the tour of Bowser's Castle, introducing us to every single Koopaling. Remember how I said that one of the things that she learned was her incorporating more detail into the characters, giving us more depth to them, that was not the wording I used, but incorporating more into their characters, giving us more character arcs, giving us having every single when we're introduced to Koopalings, we're gonna give more detail. This is basically it, more or less. So what happens is Iggy and Roy, they manage to rescue Celia pardon Celia from jail pretending to be Bowser, because ha ha ha, I'm Bowser. Iggy going to blow up the city. Oh no! Wait, I better pardon him. Yeah. Why did you blow up the city, son? Science? Okay. Pardon him. Alright, pardon him. Hey! Don't blow up the city, son. Okay, Dad. But yeah, after Iggy and Roy pretend to be Bowser and get Celia pardoned, they take Celia to Bowser's castle in order for Iggy to basically kind of sort of experiment on Celia to try to prove if she's really a hybrid. And so after he took all the scientists, like, oh, she goes, I'm Bowser's daughter. Just don't believe that. I still don't believe that. Come on, Iggy. I was like, because it makes no sense. It's why not? It's Bowser. Of course it makes sense because it's Bowser. You think he's actually? Oh, has he actually done that? Did he? I wonder. Can't wonder. Has Bowser lost the virginity? And so basically, what happens is Iggy basically assuming sort of like the father was like, well, Bowser's on somewhere. He'll be back tomorrow. Here's what you can do: just introduce Celia to the rest of the family. Have fun. And so Roy, over the course of about 5-6 chapters, introduces Celia to the rest of the Koopalings. And it's this part that is what I wanted from the original. It gives us everything we want to know about every single Koopaling that's going to be the main character, including Bowser Jr. But Bowser Jr. is there too, but he's more or less irrelevant to the grand scheme because he's not a Koopaling. Unless Nintendo goes like, oh yeah, Bowser's a Koopaling. And probably me and Star are probably like, So we're introduced to Ludwig. This is not in any particular order. I'm just saying what we're introduced to. We're introduced with Ludwig and Lemmy's chemistry and the fact that Lemmy kind of annoys Ludwig and Ludwig just wants to be alone. Ludwig, of course, is a super. He has telekinetic. He can fly. He has telekinesis. He has pyro. I don't know why I'm hiccuping. He has pyrokinesis. He has to control his motion, a la Raven. And we're also introduced to some of the implication that something's going on with his mindscape, which of course was revealed to be Frostwall. We're introduced to Wendy, where Wendy is basically a sort of vain person, but she actually genuinely loves her brothers and wants to actually hang out with them and be like one of the boys, but at the same time be one of the girls. But she has no girls to hang out with. Lemmy, of course, is Lemmy. He's like the clown. He wants to goof off. We're introduced to Larry, who's basically that one obnoxious douchebag that everyone knows, but doesn't say anything because that obnoxious douchebag is also kind of doesn't do enough to warrant it. I want to punch him so much, but he doesn't deserve it. Why? Well, because he's a douchebag, but he's he's not really pissing off everyone enough to really. He's like that gray area of you want to punch him, but he doesn't deserve it yet. Yeah. And of course, we're finally introduced to Morton. With Morton being depressed, when we're introduced to him, Roy knocks on the door. He opens it. It's completely dark, and he's kind of mopey and drewy. And Celia kind of connects the dots, but doesn't really say anything. Mainly because it's not Morton's story. We're not focusing on Morton in this story. makes sense. And of course, we're introduced to Morton's pets, including the snarky parrot. I like the snarky parrot, and also the fact I don't think we know if Morton's love of cooking was in this episode. It's been that's like the one thing I forget. If she introduced his love of cooking in this version, or she saved that for when Morton, like when she focuses on Morton in the episode with his depression and stuff like that. I can't remember. And it's really quite amazing how she manages to give us all these characters, about 7 main characters, because Celia is the main character of this story, but she doesn't really become part of the main cast. She more or less just kind of filters in and out depending on the story. But yeah, this is the Koopaling story. The fact that she managed to give us 7 main characters, she gave us more time to get to know them, who they are, what they're doing, and more importantly, how they interact with each other. And that was the big thing, because the Koopalings are always one unit. If you're going to tell a story about the Koopalings, the big thing you have to do is tell us how they kind of coalesce with each other, how they coexist with each other. And if you don't have that, then you don't really have the Koopalings. You just have a bunch of, like, you have Roy and Ludwig and Lemmy and Larry and Wendy and Iggy. And, oh wait, I didn't even talk about Iggy. Iggy is Iggy. Mainly because I just don't like, of course, he's the know-it-all. He's like, I made 9 degrees in college. It's one of those degrees nagging. I do have a debate scholarship, yes. Yes, it's like, but debating is arguing? It's like divorce is debating is arguing. Have you ever watched politics? No, I try to stay out of that. Good, me either. I just got it so that way I can just talk. I can just know what the idiot politicians are saying, so I can understand and ignore them. I also created a new element. It's like, what is it called? The Galaxium! Where does it come from? Space! Ta-da! I couldn't resist. I had a joke. I had a crack joke thingy. But yeah. That is... But giving us the chance to be introduced to the Koopalings, introduced to what they do, who they are, and most importantly, when it comes to the Koopalings as a unit, how they interact with each other. It does everything that the original needed to do when it comes to introducing. Because, like a cartoon, the biggest thing a cartoon has to do to entice people to watch it is introduce us to the characters. You can't if you don't introduce us to all the main characters, then we're not really going to care. That's why, whenever a long-standing cartoon introduces a new character, they tend to have a complete special just to focus on introducing that new character. Like what happened with Fairly Odd Parents, when we're introduced to Cosmo wanting to have a kid. There's an entire special just getting when they get pregnant and give birth to Poof. There's an entire special just dedicating to us, like, this is Poof. This is what Poof does. This is who Poof is. This is how Poof interacts with Cosmo, Wonder, and Timmy. Ta! And stuff like that. It happens in every long-standing show. It happens in every anime. You have to actually introduce us to each character individually over the course of as little time as possible so we can get used to who they are. The bigger the cast, the more you have to work on introducing each of them. So, but yeah, that is Celia's Dad Redux. This is a great story. It is without a doubt Starlet Duck's best work. Probably going to be her best ever work. I know I'm kind of shooting myself on the foot with this, but this would probably be her best story she's ever written. She deserves all this praise that I'm giving her. I'm happy to basically become friends with her. over the course of reviewing all these stories, because I've now helped, because of course I mentioned it in episode 23 that I'm going to be helping her out with, review, like going through all of her future stories and just helping her out with that. And this story is, again, the story's great. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I hope she keeps working and keeps growing and maybe accomplishing her dreams of wanting to make a Koopaling cartoon. Everyone has a dream. I support her dream. I want her to showcase her love for the Koopalings. I know I'm coming off creepy, but yeah, I support her 100% on her journey to become an animator and stuff like that. And honestly, tell her you support her too. Like, give her a pat on the back. Say, come on, cheer her on for her dream. And let's hope she actually accomplishes that dream. You can do it, Star. So that is my review of Celia's Dad, Redux. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and I guess Vivian. And cut.